Welcome into the Lucas podcast on a Tuesday in September. And Mike, my number one question for you is how do you hide the fact that you are a diehard New York Giants fan, actually rooting for the Giants against the Browns when on every social platform, everyone would guess that you are a diehard Cleveland Browns fan?
I don't hide it. I openly talk about the fact I'm a Giants fan, even though I was rooting for the Browns in this game, believe it or not.
Because you want the Giants to get a better draft pick?
Yeah, they're just going nowhere with Danny Dimes. He played an
No,
incredible
you think
game.
they're going nowhere? I mean, listen, I think the Giants may have found something here. That listen, their
No, no,
defensive line
Frank.
is
This is what you
listen.
do. This is what you do to the Devils. You try to do it to the Knicks. You just try to
I'm a
con
Devils
yourself.
fan.
The Rangers, sorry, so you did to the
Rangers.
Rangers, the Knicks. Like, this is what you do. Listen, we have enough of
But
a
hey,
sample
no, no,
size
no,
of
no,
Danny
no.
Dimes.
Let
No,
me sell
no,
you on
no.
the
You
Giants.
can't ask me a question, then halfway through my answer, just decide to answer. Listen, what we saw from Danny Dimes against Cleveland was incredible. That may have been the second best game I've ever seen Daniel Jones play. I've also seen about 50 other games where he's been a below average to atrocious NFL quarterback, and I refuse to believe that one game is going to trump a track record of 3 seasons of incompetent quarterback play. I never expected him to do that. I don't expect him to do it again on Thursday against Dallas. I don't expect to see it again for the rest of the season. Daniel Jones could be a good backup, but that's about it. The Giants are going nowhere, so I was actually rooting for Cleveland to win because my job is so much more fun, Frank, when the Browns are in a complete catastrophe. And right now, they are an absolute laughing stock. So yeah, I was rooting for the Browns to win, but I don't hide the fact I'm a Giants fan. Everyone knows that.
So the Giants, listen, the Giants have a great, in my opinion, a great defensive front with Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau. Like those are three perennial Pro Bowl
Yeah.
players rushing the passer on an every play basis. Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Jones, as listen, he's been in the playoffs before. Obviously, do I think that he's the long-term answer? No, but he has a track record of of somewhat success. He's not like Bryce Young who every time he's played has lost a game. And then you have the emergence of Malik Neighbors,
He's the
who
truth.
behind Jane Daniels. I was looking for the rookie AP Offensive Rookie of the Year odds. So he's second behind Jane Daniels, plus 280 right now. Neighbors was since he was OBJ-esque
Yeah.
for the New York Giants in that game. And you have a quarterback with that weapon and that defensive line. Like, I'm not saying the Giants are, going to run the table here, but to win 6 or 7 games, I could definitely see that being extremely realistic.
And that's to be the worst case scenario for the Giants. Also, Frank, real quick, does my shot look extra crisp today?
You got a new camera?
No, but for whatever reason, it just looks incredibly crisp in a way that I don't ever remember it looking.
Hey, when
Is
when
it just,
when when when
does
you're
it
on the
look crisp to you
podcast with me,
too?
honestly, it looks the same as it always does. But
Okay, so maybe it's just the display on the refriend because I just did a 2 hour show. Our supercomputer for UCSS died yesterday, so we bought a new one, and the box on the screen of the replay is so much smaller. So, but this shot looks great. I really do have a nice in-home studio, Frank. I'd like to
so
get you one for
what?
your bachelor party or for your wedding.
The bachelor party you refused to go to.
I
So
couldn't get off.
what?
Well,
What has been the react? Like, are Cleveland Browns fans like? Is this like the sky is falling, season's over? What has been the reaction in the land
yeah.
about the Browns?
So Deshaun Watson entering the season had about a 50-50 approval rating. Deshaun Watson right now has about a 20% approval rating. There's still people who will die on the hill that nothing's Deshaun's fault. It's the offensive line, it's the receivers, it's the coaching, it's the play calling. No quarterback can thrive under those circumstances. And they have some validity. The offensive line has been atrocious. I don't think their receiving core is good. It's okay, but it's certainly not good. They have no game breakers. Malik Neighbors was the best weapon on the field. And you can make the case Wan'Dale Robinson was the second or third best behind Amari Cooper. They have no running game to speak of whatsoever. And their offensive line is in shambles. And now 3 of their 5 starters are hurt. Their play calling, they have an identity crisis. Deshaun wants to play a spread system, Frank. They don't have the protection or the playmakers to play a spread. Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, 2-time coach of the year, who has gotten the best out of PJ Walker and Jacoby Brissett and Joe Flacco, likes to run an under center West Coast Kyle Shanahan style of offense. Well, guess who hates going under center and hates turning his back to the defense and hates doing play action? Deshaun Watson. So you got a legitimate identity crisis. And I would say, as of today, 1:08 p.m. on Tuesday, after week 3, Deshaun Watson, who has the lowest QBR in football behind Bryce Young, or is only ahead of Bryce Young. The Browns, who have the worst EPA per play of any offense in football through 3 weeks. The Browns, who have their worst statistical offensive numbers across the board since coming back to Cleveland in 99, which includes an 0-16 season. They're worse than that, Frank. They're completing 18.6% of their third down attempts, the lowest mark in franchise history through 3 weeks. 20% of the fan base says it ain't Deshaun, it's everyone else. 80% of the fan base acknowledges the shortcomings on the rest of the roster, but it's the quarterback. It's always the quarterback's fault. And just like they get the credit when they win, they get the blame when it's a loss. And Deshaun is not good enough to overcome some of the shortcomings, which is an issue when you trade 3 first-round picks and sacrifice that level of talent on your roster to get a guy. You can overcome the lack of talent if you have a premier quarterback. And right now, Deshaun's playing like a bottom 10 guy, much closer to the bottom 10 than he is anywhere near the top 10.
I mean, I like to believe that Kevin Stefanski's not that arrogant enough to not recognize what Deshaun Watson does well and what he doesn't do well. Listen, I haven't watched a ton of Browns football. I can't specifically say how often they put him under center or shotgun or whatever that system is that, but given his track record of success, and I believe he's gotten, coach of the year votes like last year
he won last year and he won in 2020. He's won 2 of the last 4 coach of the year.
So, I mean, he has a track record of being, a pretty damn good coach and turning, not so good quarterbacks into guys who look very, very competent. So for the Browns fans attacking Stefanski for the way he's handling Deshaun Watson, I don't know how necessarily fair that is. I am of the camp that Deshaun Watson is finished, and it's probably smart for the Browns to, plan for the future.
I'll say this, Frank. The days of Deshaun ever getting back to Houston, done. Do I still think Deshaun could become an average NFL quarterback? Sure, maybe. But you don't trade 3 first-round picks and give out a $230 million guaranteed contract for an average quarterback. You had average in Baker Mayfield. And the whole thing with Baker, Frank, was you need a perfect team around him for Baker to win. He needs great protection. He needs great weapons. You got to have a good defense. Got to be able to run the ball. Well, they got Deshaun to eliminate the needs for everything else. And right now, Deshaun isn't overcoming anything. He's not elevating anybody. And through 3 weeks, this offense has been abysmal.
So elsewhere, the New York Football Jets dominated the New England Patriots.
I called
just it. One of the most convincing wins the Jets have had in a long time. It feels like 24-3. And I was skeptical going in about their ability to play that complete game, but obviously it feels like they should have won by more, but 24-3 is still pretty convincing. And I just can't allow myself, because there's just been so much heartbreak with the Jets to because that on any given snap, any given play, Rodgers' knee could turn the wrong way. He could reach. So you just have to be extremely guarded. You can't, pat yourself on the back too fast, but the defensive line with Quinnen Williams and Will McDonald has been a revelation. They're actually better without CJ Mosley, which is not something I thought I would say with Sherwood, who's been an absolute monster.
Can I ask you a question real quick on Will McDonald? Has he gotten? So I've only watched 1.5 Jet games, full disclosure, and I didn't see a ton last year. He had a disappointing rookie season. People were kind of questioning.
He didn't get that many opportunities too.
Does he look bigger, stronger, faster? Is it just opportunity? What?
I think it's more about opportunity. Hassan Reddick's not there. The Jets were counting on him being there. So as a result, they had to have someone else step up. And that person is Will McDonald, and he's making the most of his opportunity. Hassan Reddick was not there during mandatory minicamp. He was not there during training camp. Didn't do anything, obviously, during the preseason. Still nowhere to be found. And, the Jets were like, all right, who wants to step up? Will McDonald. All right, let's see what you got. And he's making the most of his opportunity. Last year, he didn't really get much of an opportunity to truly make an impact. And this year, he's finally getting his chance, and he's absolutely thriving. He's got first Jet since 2019 with back-to-back multiple sack games. Jamal Adams was the last one to do it. So he
looks really good. He looks really, really good.
He's been an absolute monster. And on the offense, Rodgers, after not looking great with his mobility in that first game against San Francisco, looked a little better against Tennessee and was looking like almost vintage Rodgers against New England. Nearly had his first 300-yard passing game since 2021, 23 for 281 yards. That was great to see. And then the receivers, obviously, Allen Lazard is found the fountain of youth again with Rodgers at quarterback. Garrett Wilson's obviously a stud. So surprised that he's not necessarily getting the volume that I necessarily expected going in, because in my opinion, he's like a Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, maybe not as good as Justin Jefferson, but he's in that category of, elite receiver group. And then the running game has been, more than anything I could have hoped for with Breece Hall and now the emergence of Braylon Allen. So there's a lot to like about the Jets. They have the Broncos coming up here on Sunday. And it's weird the way the Jets fans and are kind of looking at it because they feel like the Broncos they literally made the billion of this being a trap game by doing what they did to the Buccaneers, which is a little concerning because this could be like a sign of things to come. Maybe Bo Nix found something. So I just, even though I think the Jets should win and 7 points is a big spread, I am cautiously optimistic about this team. And I think they should beat the Broncos, but I am also nervous because the Broncos put a big whooping on Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, who I thought should have won that game, especially at home with those weapons they have on offense.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about this Denver game is Surtain is an elite cornerback, and they can put him on Garrett Wilson to try and take that out of the game. But as someone who has invested a lot of stock in Garrett Wilson via fantasy, they don't go to him a lot anyway. So, like, I think the Jets will be able to run the ball in Denver. I think guys like Lazard and Conklin are going to see a lot of targets again. And just like I said last week before the Patriots game, Frank, I don't think Denver is going to be able to move the ball against this Jets defense.
But I mean, I thought Tampa had a decent defense, but
not to the level of the Jets.
We'll see. Obviously, the Jets have a lot of strengths on defense.
I'd be scared to bet this game. If you were asking me, like, would I put, I'd be scared to bet because 7 feels a little too high, but I also don't think Denver's good whatsoever. And them beating Denver, I think, is just more of a weird fluky game 3 than anything else. But I think the Jets, Frank, health is the main thing. But a healthy Jets team, we talked about this before the season, how the Browns and the Jets had a total variance depending on how their quarterbacks played. The Jets with a healthy Rodgers are a darn good football team, Frank. And if I was a Jets fan, there's a lot of things to be excited about in terms of the Jets and what they can do.
Yeah, but when you see what the Buffalo Bills have looked, the Bills have looked like,
the
Chiefs,
best team in football right now.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the best player in football. There's not a player I would take over Patrick Mahomes, but you look at the injuries they've already had with Pacheco going out, not having Hollywood Brown for the entire season. Like, those are 2 pretty big losses. And now they're relying on Carson Steele at running back. So, like, well, Mahomes is going to have to do it again. Can he, turn a team full of, like, nobodies and win another Super Bowl? And with Travis Kelce essentially being a non-factor in terms of production-wise. But the Bills, I mean, I thought when they, everyone thought when they lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis that they were just going to take, a major step back. It's been the opposite. And they obviously lost Poyer and Hyde too at their safety position. But man, they look as good as ever with, obviously Josh Allen's tied with Mahomes for the MVP favorite. They just absolutely destroyed the Jaguars 47-10 on Monday night in one of the least competitive games, probably the least competitive game of the entire season. So I was like looking at a path where the Jets could probably or have a chance to win the AFC East, but it looks like the Bills, there's going to be no stopping them this year, barring injury. But in terms of the Jets, they could stay healthy. Yeah, I agree. They should make the playoffs. I am pretty optimistic about where they're at right now. Just a matter of keeping Rodgers healthy, and hopefully they could do that. And I'm interested to see how they look against Denver here, because I would like to see string a couple like really solid performances in a row, because I am very skeptical of Denver, and I think they can be. I'm going to say this for every game the Jets play this year. That's just the way it is. That's all the way the Patriots looked early going. I was like, man, they're going to be tough for the Jets to beat, and the Jets whooped them. So hopefully something similar could happen here on Sunday against the Denver Broncos, but we'll see.
Were you more or less confident entering this game than you were last game against the Patriots?
I think I'm less confident entering this game against the Broncos because they look so good. They look so freaking good.
And it just can't happen 2 weeks in a row. Like your fandom.
It could. Why not? I mean,
no, I'm saying, but you don't think it's going to happen per se because you're so scarred from Jets of past that you don't.
Yeah, right? I mean, as a Jets fan, every time you think like, ooh, things are good or things are good, like the world comes crashing down, like in the snap of a finger. So I'm just very, very cautious with everything, and I just can't allow myself to get super, super excited.
That's fair.
In Pittsburgh, the Steelers now 3-0. Justin Fields starting all 3 games. Russell Wilson still dealing with a calf injury. Mike, do you believe that Russell Wilson is legitimately hurt or no?
Yeah, I wouldn't make the change. I think he'll end up starting at some point this season. The Steelers
really? So if Justin Fields wins every start, doesn't lose a start, you think that when Russell Wilson claims that he speaks to the media, I'm 100% ready to go?
No. But I mean, I just don't think Justin Fields is playing that well. They're winning in spite of Justin Fields, not because of Justin Fields.
Well, don't you think that Steelers, maybe that they realize that, like, based on like the way these games have been going, how good their defense is? Like, they're like, Justin, we're not going to unleash you. Just don't turn the ball over. And
right. They're scoring like 17.5 points a game through 3 weeks. Their defense has allowed 26 points. They are barely beating teams that aren't very good. They scored 13 points in the Broncos last week, and the Broncos defense isn't bad, but if they're going to be a competitor, like a legit
On the
Super Bowl
Chargers.
competitor. No, Chargers were last week. 2 weeks ago was Denver.
Oh, 2 weeks.
This is just an unsustainable way to win at the highest level. Like you could win regular season games like this, but if you're going to make a real push for a Super Bowl, a real push in the playoffs, like you can't win with Justin Fields playing the way he is right now frequently. I'm not saying it's impossible. You can win a game, but like the Browns last year with Flacco, it's just there's a ceiling to what you can actually accomplish with a quarterback who's limited. And I'm not saying Russ is great. I understand Russ has his own limitations, but right now the Steelers can't throw the ball. They really struggle to throw the ball, and eventually you're going to have to make some passes when it matters. And Russ, say everything you want about Russ. He wasn't good enough in Denver. He had to live up the expectations. He hasn't been the same quarterback the last couple seasons. At least he gives the defense the threat of being able to throw the ball down the middle or across the middle of the field more than Justin Fields does. So I think for them to reach their highest plateau, you got to give Wilson a shot and just see what he has.
I don't think that Justin Fields is like, this is like the ceiling of what he can be. I've seen it. I've seen him do it in Chicago where he's put up monster numbers. Like
on the ground.
I was ready to draft him with like my second round pick last year, but someone else beat me to it. Obviously that would have it turned out to be a major disaster in terms of the way that season went for the Bears. But I do think there's more to the tank for Justin Fields. And just to say that he's, a game manager and can't really be an explosive quarterback in the NFL, I don't think it's necessarily fair. I think there's more there. I think they're being conservative with him. And I think that if there's ever a situation where they're trailing or whatnot, I think you'll see, because even like he threw that 66-yard touchdown to Calvin Austin III, like when they needed a big play and he made it. So I don't think he's like, game manager, can't be an explosive quarterback type deal. I think that's a little unfair.
He's explosive. It's just with his legs, not his arm.
Jim Harbaugh, I don't know who made the decision that Justin Herbert should play 1 week after getting a high ankle sprain. I don't know if this was Justin Herbert being like, I'm tough, I can do it, or Jim Harbaugh challenging him, listen, if you're a man, you're going to play. I don't know how those conversations went, but no athlete should be playing 1 week after getting a high ankle sprain. That's a 4 to 6 week injury. And the fact that he was out there clearly hobbled, like not even close to 100%, then re-injures himself. And now he's probably not going to, if he does play against the Chiefs, like he's probably end up not making it through the game again either. So this is a coaching move by Jim Harbaugh or arrogance from Justin Herbert that could turn, what could have been a promising season for the Chargers completely haywire because of arrogance on either Harbaugh's end or Justin Herbert's end. I don't know which one. My guess is something tells me Jim Harbaugh was like to Justin Herbert, you're a man. I play with this injury, so you're going to play with this. That's how in my mind, that's how those conversations went.
I heard Big Cat say that same thing, and I was like, oh, that's 100% what happened. Like, I didn't think of it in the moment, but after, and I'm not saying it's an original thought, but whatever it was, like, I can't imagine any other scenario than that is exactly what happened. Harbaugh told Herbert, hey, can you play? He's like, I don't know. And then Harbaugh said, I played through that. You're a man, tough it out. We're a tough football team. Your team needs you on the field to show that toughness, which was, once again, as you said, Frank, the wrong decision. There is no game in week 3 of the NFL season that is worth enough to negate having a guy down the stretch when it really matters. No game in week 3, especially when you're 2-0, especially when it's not even a division opponent. It's a conference opponent, not a division opponent. And I thought it was pretty silly to try and force Herbert out there in a game where, Pittsburgh's offense isn't great. Yes, their defense is terrific, and you're going to struggle to score with or without Herbert. But the risk reward of beating Pittsburgh as opposed to being 2-1 and losing Herbert for 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it may be now, bad coaching by Harbaugh, who's done a terrific job so far. But that's a major mistake in my opinion.
Yeah, I was shocked they had him out there, and not surprised at all that Herbert couldn't make it through the game, because that's, like I said, that's a 4 to 6 week injury, and you're coming back less than a week after it happens. Coaching malpractice. So let's move on to Major League Baseball, and what a turn of events for the New York Yankees, who here on Tuesday, magic number to clinch the AL East is 1. Magic number to clinch the best record of the American League in home field advantage to the ALCS is 3. I believe they're only ahead of the Cleveland Guardians, but what is just a shocking turn of events. Like, where this team is at right now, it seems like everything is clicking. They fortified the back end of the bullpen. Luke Weaver is everything Clay Holmes is not. He lives for those big moments. You can trust him to throw strikes. It was funny the other night in Oakland. Clay Holmes goes out there, puts 2 runners on base, and then Luke Weaver comes in and cleans up the mess. Ian Hamilton's been an absolute stud at the back end of the bullpen. Holmes will still be a valuable piece, just shouldn't be counted on in extreme high leverage situations. Tommy Kahnle's been a monster as well. Even Mark Leiter Jr. looked good the other day, so I feel so much better about the bullpen. And it's crazy. Like, if you would have told me 2 weeks ago, this final series of this final second to last series of the season against the Orioles would essentially be irrelevant. Like, the Yankees just have to win this one game, the rest of the season, the AL East is theirs. Like, I can't even wrap my head around it. I don't know how we got here, but man, 6-game lead with 6 to go is just something I never envisioned happening with this team. Not even close.
No, you've been on and off. It's been a roller coaster all season, Frank. You have been on and off the Yankees like a toxic relationship. I'm glad you found Leanne, who's a perfect fiance for you, and you guys are make a wonderful married couple. But you and the Yankees are the toxic relationship that you never had in your real life to get you ready for a settled down marriage. 1 week it's great, you're all in. The next week, I can't stand this person, we're not talking. How could the Yankees put out the same lineup again and again? How could they have Alex Verdugo? It is, to steal your word, organizational malpractice to have Jason Dominguez in AAA. And here we are, Frank. And they're 1 game away from clinching the AL East. They're going to be the 1 seed in the American League. And right now, in a Major League Baseball landscape that has no clear-cut favorite whatsoever in the playoffs.
I mean, I think the Dodgers and the Phillies are like, at least the Phillies, because they have a legitimately great starting rotation, and then plus that offense. And the Dodgers, obviously, with Ohtani and Betts and Freeman, but they just have questions pitching. But I think the Phillies and Dodgers are clearly ahead of the Yankees. But the good thing about that is we don't have to worry about them until the World Series if the Yankees.
Okay, so if you want me to clarify, with no clear-cut favorite in the American League, the Yankees are positioned as well as any team to make a deep playoff run. Will they? Who knows? Baseball playoffs are so weird now with the buys. Like, do you, Frank, in a perfect world, do you like having the bye?
I mean, it's just more time for me as a fan to relax. I guess in a perfect world, it would just go, you have a couple of days off, 2 or 3 days off before you transition right to that series. But I guess it's concerning in the sense that look at last year and the Texas Rangers, squeaked into the playoffs with 87 wins, whatever it was, and ended up running the table, winning the whole thing. So it definitely allows for those teams in that wild card series to all of a sudden get hot and then stay hot. So that's a little concerning, especially when you look at the bracket right now, and the Yankees would line up against either the Royals or the Orioles in that first division series matchup. Could also be Detroit, but I look at Detroit, I look at Kansas City, and I look at Baltimore, and Baltimore's got Corbin Burns, who is arguably the best pitcher in the American League. The Royals are just a real thorn in the side with Bobby Witt Jr., who's basically like the reincarnation of Ted Williams. They have Cole Reagans, who's a dominant starting pitcher, and then you have the Detroit Tigers, who if the Yankees had to play them, you're also have to deal with Skubal, who is also one of the best pitchers in the American League. So and have also been the hottest team in baseball in the second half. So there's so much to be scared of in the American League. Even though the Yankees will look like the best team, Corbin Burns in a 5-game series, you lose to him twice, and you just need to lose one other game and you're out of the series. Same with Reagans and same with Skubal. So I guess the good thing is that maybe those guys will have to be used, down the stretch here, the final weekend of the season, plus in that wild card series that they wouldn't be available till game, 3 or 4 of that divisional series. But it's nothing's guaranteed. So while I am cautiously optimistic and obviously extremely excited about the fact that Gleyber Torres is, been a 330 hitter in September, Soto and Judge are obviously, an unbelievable 1-2 punch. Austin Wells has been a revelation at catcher. Stan, as long as he gets consistent playing time here, has actually been a legitimate offensive threat. Dominguez, absolutely love him. I know he's made a couple boneheaded mistakes in the outfield, but I think you're starting to see him turn a corner here, getting a little more comfortable, starting to really drive the ball. Volpe's finally starting to hit. So everything's coming up good. It's just that little layoff and that little momentum boost that those wild card teams get is definitely a little scary, but I guess we'll just cross that bridge when we get there.
feel like every team responds to the layoff differently. And at least last year, the teams that played got hot and the teams that sat did not respond properly. And hopefully the Yankees can adjust and handle that. The Guardians are going to deal with the same thing. They're going to get the 2 seed. They're going to have a few days off as well. They have a brand new manager. So, who the hell knows how they're going to handle that. But it's going to be a fun playoffs, Frank. Without any clear-cut favor, as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of teams that are going to have a chance to make a run, and it's going to come down to which team's stars step up the biggest. And we know, as good as Aaron Judge has been in the regular season, he has yet to really have that defining playoff push or that playoff run. And there would be a terrific, no better time. Dare I say, this would be the perfect time for Aaron Judge to officially earn his playoff pinstripes.
I mean, we've been waiting for it for a long time now. I thought 2022 may have been the year, but that didn't end up to be. But this is definitely the best chance he's had, I think, to really have that dominant playoff run, especially with the production of Soto and Stanton and Austin Wells here. But we'll see. We'll see. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50.
Incredible.
First player ever. Obviously, the stolen base rules have made it a lot easier to steal bases. So who knows if under the old rules this would have happened. But my main takeaway here is, listen, I'm not going to debate about the all-time greatness of Ohtani. He's basically, Kevin Durant had to go to the Golden State Warriors to win his championships or to have the legitimate success. He couldn't do it on his own. And that's sort of how I view Ohtani. Is he had to team up with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman to finally experience what it's like to play playoff baseball. But listen, he can go out there, have a dominant postseason, win the World Series, and, my arguments against him will be dead forever. But my first thought when I saw 50-50 was, how much of this is the fact that, he's not pitching and he could, just focus on being a good hitter, being a good base runner. And you're sort of seeing the results here. Obviously, he's had great offensive seasons in the past while pitching, but maybe just if he doesn't have to worry about pitching, this just allows him to take his offensive ability to the next level, even though he can be a great pitcher. He's had 2 Tommy John surgeries since he's been in the major leagues in the past, 5 years.
He is so good, Frank. It's silly. It defies the laws and the logic of humanity. And I have no doubt that if Shohei Ohtani was pitching as well, he wouldn't steal 50 bases because he wouldn't be playing every day like he is now. But I don't think it really hinders a lot. He's freaking unbelievable, man. Like, the fact that he's a top 10 pitcher and a top 5 hitter in baseball at once, while also giving you 50 stolen bases and, doesn't play the field. I get that, but he is the best player in baseball. As good as Aaron Judge is, Shohei Ohtani is the best player in baseball and maybe the greatest player to ever play baseball. Okay. I genuinely believe that.
All right. Well, that's fine. He hasn't won a single playoff game yet. So let's not crowd him yet.
Listen, real quick. Baseball, one player in baseball can't be. We had this argument about who was Mike Trout? Ohtani with the MVP a couple of years ago. One player in baseball, you could be incredible and your team could still suck. Ohtani was incredible in Los Angeles, and because the rest of his team sucks, they have no bullpen. He can only start 1 out of 5 days. Championships don't matter in the baseball GOAT conversation.
I think they do.
I don't. Not as much as other sports. He gets to impact the game 5 times a game, as opposed to a quarterback who touches the ball 70 times and a basketball player who plays in 200 possessions. There's only so much you can do in 5 at bats.
I mean, listen, he'll go down as an all-time great, assuming that the betting controversies don't resurface. But we'll see what happens with those. But I think he's got to at least have a playoff moment to truly be considered I don't know. We'll see.
Does the World Baseball Classic count to you?
Count for when he gets inducted?
Striking out Mike Trout to win the World Baseball Classic was an all-time baseball moment.
I don't think so. It doesn't really do much for me.
No, you're a hater. Should be expected.
Honestly, I think it was a cool moment. Do I think it's one of the greatest moments in baseball history? No, absolutely not. No, not by any stretch.
I guess my point is, for someone to say, "Oh, Shohei's not a winner," well, he beat Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, striking out the best. But that's my point. It doesn't
he didn't beat him. He got the final out. He didn't.
Your team has to be good to win in baseball, and he was on a trash organization that wasted his talents.
All right, we'll see.
Aaron Judge hasn't won anything.
Got to do it.
I agree.
Feels like we're on a collision course here for Dodgers Yankees World Series. Who's the best player in baseball, Judge or Ohtani?
It'd be awesome. That'd be the best thing for baseball. Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred would do bad things for that to happen. Let's just put it that way.
All right, that will do it for this edition of the Lucas podcast. We'll be back next week to recap the Giants and the Cowboys, the Jets, and the Broncos.
Peace.